Shall we start then?
Yeah, go for it, Caroline.
You think? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so welcome everyone to our meeting for dispatchers. The team of dispatchers has increased quite significantly over the last couple of days as we've invited teams to consider having more dispatchers, up to 4, and I think a couple areas have even, they've got about 5 in those areas. So we're now 60 plus, 65 plus. Bernie will know exactly. She's keeping track on that.
I think I've got about 72.
Ooh, 72, so that's a big team.
71.
Okay,
Apologies.
so, well, first of all, I think just to check on, like, you know, how we're all feeling, etc. Very aware that quite, you know, all of us, if not, well, most of us, if not all of us, this is being a really scary time. We all have our own worries, it being jobs and money, and also, you know, wanting to say a big thank you, because at that point, to be able to put yourself forward to take that role is pretty remarkable. So I think what a team, and I can't wait till we get to meet in person and say a proper thank you. So thank you for that. The very first point we wanted to discuss was how we were thinking the best way to split the responsibility between central team, then the dispatchers, and then the volunteers. So I've got that somewhere, something like that. That was kind of a draft. So please add your question in the chat. We were thinking, so Dominique's looking after our PP, sent a fantastic email again earlier. Then we've got Bruni, who's now going to be overlooking and looking after all of you dispatchers and looking at updating the protocols when it's necessary, but hopefully as little as we can. Then Jen is still looking after the website and the social media. So I need to add that, Jen, sorry. I've looked at the tracking, I'll keep doing that. The representation, you know, Jen is there as well, actually, and then Bruni, and then myself, and Anthony's been doing a lot of it for us with external organization. Amy Maynard has been updating our list of volunteers. Dominique has been updating our local offers. If you hear of anything, or if using anything that's not on the local offer page, please email Dominique Sidwell. She's on that spreadsheet that we've sent you. And then Mary, obviously, a key person on our team, has been really helpful and helping us and advising us in terms of like the medical advice and dealing with pandemic, etc. What we then thought was that the responsibility for the dispatchers, and obviously some of that will go down to volunteers, is to receive, manage, complete, and track all the requests you get. To manage your team of volunteers, that includes setting up the communication channel, keeping them, you know, updated about what's happening in your area. A big one is making sure that your volunteers understand the protocol, and they've got all the equipment they need and the badges. Then that would be #1 priority for all of us, central team, non-central team, is making sure that all our volunteers have understood the correct practice and protocol, and they are using safe practice. I will keep repeating that tonight, because I think from our perspective, and I'm sure yours as well, the safety of our volunteers and therefore the community is like #1. Had many discussions with Mary over the last few days, and again, we've come back to the conclusion that if we cannot adhere to protocol and if we cannot use safe protocol, we are better off not volunteering. It's that bad. We are in a position where we are in an at-risk group, and if any of us get contaminated, and now might be in a house with, you know, if we don't adhere to those protocols, we will then be putting the community at risk and ourselves at risk. And this is a risk that we really need to consider with a greater care. It's fantastic that we all come forward, but now we need to do that extra step. It's not only about wanting to help, but we will help better by stepping back if we don't feel we can ensure safe protocol. And that's something that you need to pass that idea onto your volunteer, that it doesn't matter if they want to step back, but if they stay with you, they will have to follow protocol and they will have to ensure that they're being safe. So sorry to be a bit heavy on that one. That also includes for you, as part of your responsibility as dispatcher, that when you plan the work of your team, that you consider what's the most clever way, the most well thought through way where you use as few volunteers as possible, you maximize social distancing. So that would mean that that one pickup at the pharmacy a day, and hopefully you'll come back at the end when we get to the point where we talk about your best practice, where you can share with us ideas that you've been putting in place to making sure that we are helping with the social distancing and we're not making things worse. And then it will be your responsibility to read the email from Bruni on a daily. She will do it both on Facebook and on email, and then to share that information with your volunteers. So if at any point we update the protocol, then we'll have to make sure that those volunteers have looked at it and they're aware of it. So that's, I think, that communication channel is now really important. We're 950 people on the group. We are nearing 600 volunteers. So we really need to get that right. So not everybody starts going their own way saying, oh, I'm helpful, look at me. And that's not the idea. That's really is not the idea. So on that note, but again, I want to finish on the positive, just saying thank you very much for, for taking that on board. It's an amazing role that you're taking on, and thank you for joining us, help this community. And now go back to the agenda, and that is up to Mary, and I'm going to stop sharing screen so you can actually see Mary.
Hello. Can you hear me? Just wave if you can hear me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining once again. I know some of you will have heard this till you're almost blue in the face now, but today's national picture is not attractive when you look at it in the round. We've seen a doubling basically of deaths overnight. We continue to have a number of visitors from London in Rye, and as Anthony pointed out at the last meeting, we're a democracy, there's not much we can do about this, but we do need to be aware that this increases the risk of transmission in Rye. I don't want to be anti-visitor at all. We almost rely on our tourism, but in a situation like this, we need to be realistic. And these people will be going to the very same places that our volunteers are going to. They will be going to the shops. They will be going to the chemist to see if there's any Panadol in stock. And, you know, we do need to take extra care now. Some of the things I've recommended in the past, I can understand if you haven't seen anyone dying in your community yet, nor have you been personally affected by this in terms of a relative. You might think this is really over the top, but I've spent the day looking at the latest advice, the latest scientific advice, which basically shows that the virus for COVID-19 can live for a long time in air conditioning units in hospitals. It can aerosol, which basically means it kind of dries out after you've, say, sneezed it, and it can hang on to clothing for quite some time. So I really want to hammer home the importance of our protocol. We owe it to ourselves to stay healthy and to our families, but particularly if we're volunteering in an altruistic way for our community, the very last thing, elderly people with underlying conditions or a poor immune system, which basically happens once you reach 65, your immune system is not as hot as it was when you were 25. Basically, we're basically signing a death warrant for some of them if we don't adhere to our practice. And so I really want to hammer home the importance of sticking to protocol. That's the first thing. And also to be firm with volunteers that you know are flaunting the rules, if you like. We've had several reports of people just not prepared to take it that seriously because it's not in their face, they don't see it now. But I can guarantee to you in a few weeks' time, when we have almost non-stop sirens here, unless something changes very, very radically, that people will take it seriously then, but it will be too late. So the time for us to act is now. The time to be cautious is now. The time to wash your hands was actually yesterday, but the time to wear your gloves when you're out shopping, to cover your face from aerosol and to prevent you from coughing over anyone else, because don't forget, any one of us, myself, Anthony, Dominic, Caroline, Bruni, Jen, I'm just reading across the top, we could all be asymptomatic carriers of this, and therefore it's really important that we cover our faces when we go into high density areas now. It doesn't afford you a lot of protection personally, but it does stop you passing it on. We know that the national figure is going to go up over the next few weeks. We know we've got visitors from London and elsewhere. We know our airports in the UK are still open and taking from America, Iran, etc. And as of today, we have our first confirmed COVID-19 case. There may be others. It's the first that I'm aware of that's been positively tested, who was taken into hospital at the weekend. There may well be others, but it's definitely in our community now, and we cannot afford to be slack on the protocol or make exceptions because we're busy or we can't be bothered, or just because people aren't signing up to it. It's better that less of us do the volunteering and we do it correctly to protocol than it is to have masses of handy volunteers doing their community thing, but actually acting as potential transmitters of disease. I hope I haven't been too hard on that, but one thing I did want to say is that I think it would be helpful because, and Dominic will talk shortly about when we're going to be using the more advanced PPE. At the moment, I don't think we need to use it imminently, but we will probably shortly. But it would be very helpful if those of you who have heard of people going into hospital with shortness of breath, report it up the line. I'm happy to take records of that, so that we have some idea of when we're going to be likely to need to use the more advanced personal protection equipment. It's a difficult call, and you'll have heard it from the government saying we don't want to act before it's necessary. We don't want people in Rye running around in hazmat suits unless it's necessary, but equally well, particularly in sheltered accommodation, if we have to enter into communal areas and possibly close to some care homes or blocks of flats, it might be necessary for our volunteers to wear this. And therefore, it's particularly important if we hear of people who are going into hospital, particularly on what I call blues and twos, so blue lights and two-tone sirens. It's particularly important if you report that to dispatchers, and then dispatchers can let me know, and we then have an idea of cases. Not all of them will be COVID-19, but we will have a better picture as time goes on.
Mary, can I just bring up a question?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Simon that originally asked. Now there is a confirmed case, albeit just one that we know of. Could this information be passed on to our volunteers to just make them aware? I mean, obviously there's no names or anything like that, but just make them aware that it is now in Rye. Can the dispatcher share that with their volunteers just to?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I think the location should probably stay within the core group, especially in the early days. And that's purely because you don't want any kickback from local groups, but outside of the volunteering group, obviously. I think confidentiality of location is important in the early days, particularly, but we don't know how the community will actually react to this. So I think there's a case for caution to keep the location within the core group, but I think it's perfectly reasonable now to tell volunteers that there's a confirmed case as of today who was admitted to hospital on Saturday.
Yeah.
I think it's perfectly reasonable.
Okay.
I just quickly answer Gary's point. I think is actually a good point he's making. He's saying that the volunteer that have gone through our training last week with Mary, or who've gone through training that you might have done, or meeting you might have had with your own volunteer, are reasonably trained and aware, but then they seek a lot of friendly groups and friendly neighbors who maybe are not so aware of the practices. Please don't hesitate. That's what we've done the website. Jen's done a fantastic job. It's all there. It's all for everybody to have a look. If you feel people would benefit from printing the protocol, please print it for them, and with obviously in a safe way of leafleting protocol, give them that information. And later Bruni will update us on something we're trying to do, where we would try and actually do another mailing potentially with key information about safe practice for residents and for everyone. That's coming up in a minute.
Okay.
Mary, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Not at the moment. I'm happy to take any questions.
Is there any question for Mary?
No, I don't think so. I think there's just a couple of comments, and we've already discussed this, Caroline. I think you and I earlier, about people just going a bit rogue and going out on their own. Now, obviously, there's nothing we can do about that, and people that already know their neighbours and things like that, they're going to continue to help because they've already got that contact and relationship with them. All I can say is, we can't stop that. That's fine. It's not our way or the highway. But if you do know of anybody that's going out alone and doing it, please just say that you don't have to be part of Rye Mutual Aid to continue, but try and just share the information on the protocols with them, because they're trying their best to help people, but they could actually be making the situation a lot worse if they're not following the protocol. So we can't stop that, and it should be encouraged, if anything. But yeah, they need to follow the same guidelines. So
I think we've been very, very lucky, and actually we didn't expect the number to grow that big initially, but actually that has been such a strength, because we've gathered people like Anthony, like Mary, like lots of people who've advised us, and I think as a result we've put together protocols that are a lot safer than it would have been if it was a group of 20 mates who just kind of look a little bit and say, oh, what do we do here? So I think we're very, very lucky in that sense, and let's try and share that knowledge that we've kind of put together with as many people as we can. So if I now share my screen again, I'd like to have a quick go through.
Can I ask Mary a question that's come up in our group? We've had a client, and one of the issues is that she's elderly. Her daughter was providing weekly coming down and giving her a shower and stuff. She lives in London, no longer feels able to do that. Now that's clearly out of our remit, but how or what should we, or can we, is there any advice we can give to the daughter as to how her mum could be assisted with those sort of personal needs? She's also, I think, quite not necessarily that receptive to care, in which case we can't do much, but it's just, what do we do with those sort of requests? I don't know.
Yeah, I think the advice I have received, and I'm not sure, maybe Anthony and Mary can just interrupt me if I'm wrong, was the best way in that for us at that point is to pass it on to the GP, because social services are completely, apparently from what I understand, very difficult to reach at the minute. And the GP have got a power there that they can actually force somebody into care if needed. So I would say the advice for dispatchers, from my understanding, would be to contact the medical centre they're attached to or the practice. Anthony, yes, please.
Just to say that I'm personally aware of quite a lot of older people who have retired down here from London. Their family remains in London, Up to now, of course, they've been in easy striking distance and they've been able to be helped and so forth. These people, having arrived, join one of the many clubs, associations in Rye, 50 odd there are, and they've enjoyed a nice little social life. That's all switched off overnight. You know, the 3 or 4 organisations I run, we are completely inactive. And so it does mean that these people are rather isolated now. They can't contact their clubs and associations. They're away from their family, and some of them are quite demanding. I've been alerted to a couple of cases where it is really an issue. And I believe that in the first instance, they should be advised to contact their family in London or wherever it is, maybe further afield. There are people I know with relatives further afield, and they've got to start thinking about making arrangements because the system will get seriously overloaded. And then if that fails and there's a serious issue, then to move to the GP. But I think primarily it's a time for family connections where they exist. Some people don't have family connections, but where they have, they should bear down on them. And it's up to the younger members of the family to make some sort of arrangement, because otherwise you will just be a surrogate hosting organization, and you'll quickly end up with an awful lot of people who will be very demanding and will tax all your volunteers.
Can we ask I think the question is, what arrangements can they make, and how would they go about that? Because in this particular case, the daughter lives in London, her mother lives in Rye, fairly perhaps stereotypical. What is it that people could be doing if they're in London for their elderly relations, given that we shouldn't be encouraging them to come down, or should we?
I think frankly, the owner in these extremely difficult times, you've heard from Mary, we've all seen the daily update from the government. We're heading into a very difficult 2-week period where I think the cases are going to rise fairly dramatically and the deaths will rise. And I think that the onus initially has got to be put back onto the family, because, you know, we do not have the sort of systems, official systems, that can look after tens of, I mean, some of these people are late 80s, early 90s that I'm aware of, and they're very difficult, you know, and you don't want the onus of that, because if something goes badly wrong, somebody is going to be pointing a finger and saying, well, that's a nice thing, you know, what happened here? So I think regardless of what they do, they have got to come up with arrangements. They've got to come up with telephone supplies. They've got to be speaking to them on a regular basis. They've got to sort them out with these press button call systems and make sure there's somebody alerted, and all those sort of things that we all have to do for elderly relatives, you know. And it's a very difficult time, and they ought to be putting these things in place. It may not involve traveling. You can do an awful lot on the internet and on the phone now, so you don't necessarily have to keep coming down, but we can all Skype, Zoom, all the other things, and I think you've got to put the onus back on the family, really. I've done it myself to 3 separate cases in the last day. I've said, listen, it's no good thinking we're going to be able to sort this out for you. You are going to have to take the initiative. Quite cruel, but I think that these are the facts of life.
Practical.
Yeah, it's just, for example, if it's personal care, just does anybody know whether there is personal care available that people could contact in Rye?
Yes, I mean there are a number. There's a couple, I believe, number of agencies who've got, you know, care or provide care, like the Bluebird, or. But I think this is again like what Anthony was saying. Is not for us to arrange that.
I agree.
For the family to just be told, have a look online. There's Bluebird. If you want, I can put an action on me to work out the telephone number to pass on to the family as kind of, these are the 2 agencies, you need to kind of contact them. But I think the best way for the families, what Simon was putting in the comment was, the families then need to contact the GP, and the GP will give them the advice.
I think that's good. That's really helpful.
The right way to go. Okay, so let's thank you very much for that. So yeah, the next one was going through the two protocols really quickly again. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that. I'm sure you've seen them, and actually, but just really to remind your people that when you go on the volunteer information, I'm not sharing, am I? Let me share. To really make sure that they're going onto that page, which is the volunteer information, and they read those protocols. And in particular, the two ones I've got really the health and preventing the virus to carry on going is the shopping and medicine one, and the payment and local collection scheme one. So those two, and then all the protocols anyway they need to read, but so that they're aware of them. So next is Anthony, did you want to give us an update on representation and a general update?
Yes, certainly, Caroline, thank you. I've made quite a lot of calls today to different people. I've spoken to my very good friends in SGN, the gas people. They are poised to disrupt the roads to the east of Rye. And they've agreed in principle to RVA volunteers going through with their passes, but they won't allow it every 10 minutes. So if you turn up, I'd be very keen to get early feedback on this, whether it works or not. I've sent them a specimen identity card, and we need to try it once they actually block the road at the railway bridge. And they're prepared to let through emergency services, and they've added RVA onto the list. This is what I'm told anyway, but I'm a bit like Southern Water. SGN is notoriously unreliable. So we'll see whether the word has filtered down to the work teams on the bridge. And
Anthony, sorry,
yeah.
Could I just add something there? A lot of the comments were from staff who work at the hospital and at the GP surgery up there, saying how are they meant to get to work? Was there any exception for them to be able to get onto their jobs, or are they going to have to take the detour?
Difficult is the answer. I've been party, not directly involved, but party to the discussions about these arrangements, which have been going on really since a week or two before the town meeting. And as you know, for those of you who were at the town meeting, it was argued at the town meeting. SGN are very unsympathetic because the gas work is quite important and urgent, because it's a very old gas main, is prone to leak. So they told me they'd made exceptions for emergency workers and they were making an exception for RVA. But I haven't heard anybody discuss routine workers. I mean, it's not just the hospital, of course. It's people who are working at St. Bart's. It's people living on Rye Hill who are working in Rye. There's a lot of people moving either north or south. That is an extremely busy road. So as far as I know, there's no arrangement. But if there's a particular group wish me to speak to SGN about them, then I'm happy to do so. But no one's approached me as yet.
Okay, thank you.
Various other things. Firstly, the food bank. There was a bit of a wobble about the food bank a week ago, but I think Chris Empson is now getting an increasing dependency on the food bank. But Jemson's have been very helpful. I know that some RVA volunteers have been involved, and I think the food bank is all right at the moment, but I'm reviewing it again at the weekend. That's the Rye Food Bank, of course. I've spoken today to cost cutters. They don't have a problem. They have been providing food, and the little system there of telephoning in, handing over bags of groceries have been working. They did have problems with supplies, but that seems to have been rectified, and they're now getting bread, eggs, milk, and all the other stuff. And again, if people have problems with any of these suppliers, do alert me and I'll have another go at the various managers. But that all seems to be working quite well. Same with the farm shop out at East Guildford. And of course with Jemson's. Both Caroline and I have done a lot of work with Stephen Jemson, and you may not be entirely happy with the system, but Jemson has made an awful lot of arrangements, and I've used it once. So I've had supply at home from Jemson's and it worked without a hitch. It is a bit of a performance, ringing, they ring you, you ring them, you pay, they, and all the rest of it, but it does work. I've had long chats with Optivo and St. Bart's about the two sheltered houses there. And I know that Dominic's been involved and some RVA forms have been delivered, and I'm not aware of any immediate issues, but I am in touch with the managers who do take a bit of tracking down, and they've said if there is an issue which arises, not to hesitate to get back to them. I've been on to Boots and to Day Lewis. They don't seem to have a problem, and I know that some of the volunteers have been collecting prescriptions and so forth, and the managers in both places are very amenable and are very grateful for the additional support, which is supplementing their home delivery process, which is still working. So do please focus on the vulnerable and the people in real difficulties, because as always with all these things, home delivery systems are working at the moment and are picking up an awful lot of people who are either isolated or self-isolated. I've just spotted a thing on the chat line, and that's about frozen food, which is not generally known. If you buy something in a hard plastic frozen container, which is frozen obviously, and you then take it home, don't decontaminate it and stick it in your freezer, you're probably preserving virus if it's on the container. So Mary may want to say more about this, but this is a risk. Anything that comes in from the supermarkets need to be decontaminated with wipes, and particularly if it's harder plastic and other things, including stuff going into the freezer, because the only way you'll destroy the virus is by cooking. You won't destroy it by freezing it. But Gary raised it, and I underscore it. I've also spoken in the round, and I won't dwell on it, to RVS, who are dealing with the army of NHS volunteers, which is taking a bit of winding up, I'm bound to say, because they've got to set up a highly complex process of registration, mobilization, and then allocating these volunteers. And I don't see that we're going to see an army of NHS volunteers moving onto the streets of Rye anytime soon, but I'm in touch with them, and I have alerted them of the fact that there is a community support operation in progress here, and therefore it would be a duplication of effort. I've also spoken to RVA, rather voluntary. They're getting a bit active, and they also know of RVA's activities and are focusing, I think, on places like Hastings and Bexhill and further afield. And finally, I've had a little roundup today with MP, with East Sussex County Council, with Rother, and with Rye Town Council. And if anybody wants me to feed anything into any of those organisations, I'm happy to do so, but they're all aware of what is going on in Rye and District. I've sent them your letter and the tasking sheet, so there's no excuse for anybody not to know what is going on. And I think that's all I have, really. Thanks, Caroline.
Thank you very much, Anthony, for all you're doing for us from all the time. So thank you so much for your support. So next one is Dom with his update on the PPE.
Thank you, Caroline. I won't say too much, because I think actually hopefully the email and posting on the website are sufficient to explain what has happened and why it's happened. And Mary's already gone over the whole notion of what the coveralls and overshoes are intended for. So we're not expecting anybody to be putting them on right now, but at the same time we are saying, watch this space and please come and collect them from me so that they're ready to go, just so that every team has got the PPE kit available. Unfortunately, we don't have enough goggles. I mean, I've got so these are my normal glasses here, and the goggles are here, so they're actually very similar in terms of size, and I'm taking the view that actually there's no benefit to me wearing one because it's pretty much the same size as my glasses. But anybody who doesn't have glasses, Mary, am I right in saying it's still giving a modicum of additional protection?
Absolutely, particularly for what I would call unintended droplets. So if someone sneezes within, actually, you're going to hate this, but within about 25 feet of you, glasses will protect your face.
Okay.
It's not this 2 meters thing, I'm afraid. A sneeze is projectile.
Yeah.
You can Google slow-mo sneeze if you want later for some interesting pictures. But yeah, about 25 feet for a sneeze, and your glasses will give you a degree of protection, and those goggles are great for people going in shops.
Okay. And what I'd say is if you're, because we don't have enough, you know, to kind of try and use your ingenuity to find additional ones, because we tend to have them. They can. I bought a strimmer and they happened to be in a bag, and I actually happened to then give that to Chris Emerson because she didn't have any protective kit, and so because I was concerned about the people working for the food bank, they had no PPE, so I've given them a stash of stuff, including some face masks. I should point out, I do have a few, but not very many at all. So really, can I almost take any questions on the equipment? I mean, the key thing to say really is that, Michelle has already got in touch with me just to say, look, I'd like this, and then I agree the numbers with her. I'll then bag it all up, put the name on it, and almost I don't need to go out of the house because it's outside my door. I think that's almost the best way of doing it, and then you can come and collect it when you wish. I'm preferring not to have to deliver it, but if people are saying, look, we really need it delivered, then I can accommodate that. I think just going back to what Anthony said in terms of the road closure, so anybody north of the railway bridge, up Rye Hill, and therefore we're talking Beckley, Peasmarsh, Rye Foreign, we will have to come to some arrangement, and possibly now leaving them with Caroline is not the best call. So if somebody kind of north of the railway bridge can almost volunteer to be sort of the depot until the road block is closed, just in order to avoid a massive round trip, as it were. But email or text me directly.
Dom, sure, just a couple of questions.
Sure.
In relation to the PPE, Liz at Tilling Green, a lot of volunteers are asking for the masks. When might this be something we have access to, and how is it? It's not necessarily going to be for every volunteer.
I think that's correct, and I think we have to go back to what Mary said on the whole group meeting we had last week, is that we've got to find workarounds to this. We know that the NHS are desperately short of masks, and therefore we don't want to be drawing away any supply prematurely until there's sufficient stock to go around, shall we say. So I think the non-linen tea towel option is still the preferred one, isn't it, Mary?
As I said, the main advantage of that is to stop you, the volunteer, spreading any droplets. If you cough, sneeze, or if you have a lisp like I do, I tend to spray slightly when I'm speaking. It will stop all that. In terms of actual personal protection, it would give you about 10 minutes to get round Jempson's. Not much longer. Once it's damp, the virus will then pass very happily across the material, but really there is no access to a higher grade mask anymore, because the NHS have requisitioned absolutely everything. So, you know, you can Google to your heart's content FFP3, but you're not going to find anything, and if you do, I suggest you take it to the hospital, because really we shouldn't be needing that sort of thing. It's about stopping us coughing on anyone and getting around the shops as fast as we can before our tea towel gets too damp, basically.
Okay, thank you for that, Mary.
Can I just bring another question? Just it's not relating to PPE, but just before we lose it, Neil's asked, what's the situation on DBS? Because other bodies are insisting that everyone has DBS, and obviously, you know, in an ideal situation, but when we're working under this sort of pressure and day by day, I don't think that's something we can do. And also, I thought my opinion was that was if you were with, you know, with somebody one-on-one. I don't think we're not going to be entering a house. We're not going to be with somebody with no one else there. So I don't see how it's required.
Legally, what Anthony was telling me, Anthony, if you want to say a bit more, was legally, because we are unconstituted, we don't need it. And secondly, we are not going to be staying on our own with vulnerable people.
Yeah.
Anthony, if you want to add anything, because I had asked you that question and you'd answered so well.
No, that's it in a nutshell. I did some work on this for Simon for his mental health summary. There are basically 3 levels of community support. There is the lower level, the non-statutory, which is what RMA is. There is the middle level, which are the formal charities, so people of charitable status and people like RVA and so forth. They need DBS. And also there is the upper level working directly for NHS, the NHS, I mean, the whole business that I think the NHS Army of Volunteers is going to take some time is that they are DBSing an awful lot of people. So at the lower level, as Caroline rightly said, where there is no unsupervised access to the vulnerable or the young, then frankly, it's not necessary. It's where you get unsupervised access directly for long periods of time to the vulnerable and the young and so forth, which is where there would be a requirement for DBS. But you just have to avoid being really in a DBS type situation. And if you're simply delivering, handing over or whatever, that shouldn't be the case. But people have to be sensible and pragmatic because there are risks, obviously.
I was exactly going to add that, Anthony, to what you said. You're the dispatcher. Get to know your volunteers. We're trying as much as we can to filter people at the entrance of the group, the Facebook group. But then when you get to meet them to give them their kit or anything, if you got any doubt, I know it's horrible to say, it's horrible, isn't it? I know it's horrible, but actually, you know, we want to be safe. We don't want to be sending people who've joined us because they have scamming ideas in their head. So be sensitive. I don't think this will be the case because this is an at-risk kind of role. So I'd be surprised, but yeah.
Yeah, just to round that off, of course, there are a lot of scammers out there using this whole situation. And so if dispatchers have any suspicions about somebody who suddenly pops up, you have no idea who they are, where they've come from, they're vague about their connections with Rye, then I think you should be alerting somebody further back up the chain so that somebody can say, well, I have no idea who they are, but I'll probably fail to find somebody who does. So just be alert to people breaking into the system or trying to break into the system. In a place like Rye and District where we all know each other, that shouldn't be possible, but you never know.
Okay, thank you very much, Anthony. Should I go on the next bit on the agenda then?
Yes, please.
Okay, so next point of the agenda is Jen giving us an update on social media website.
I think a lot of it's been covered already, to be honest. You know where everything is on the website. Send your volunteers there, send residents there on a daily basis. Thanks to Amy, we are updating all of the volunteers and any dispatchers. We've just added, I think, another 5 or so today. Any dispatchers will be added to the Find a Volunteer page. So it's 2 ways, for residents and it's for us. Every time we get a query, so after the last Zoom meeting, there was a few questions that there weren't time to answer. We went through all of those, and any that we felt were valid and reasonable, we've added an FAQs page, because for management, and we're learning as we go, there's always something new, whether it's about residential properties or are you covered for car insurance if you're doing voluntary work. We're adding to that FAQs quite regularly. If I think there's anything substantial added on there, I will probably share it on Facebook so you're alerted to it. So the FAQs is for anything that's not kind of the vital fundamentals. They'll be in the protocols, but it's for other kind of questions and things that are popping up and information people need to know. So yeah, we're trying to keep everything on the website so it's one place that everybody can go. Social media and Facebook, I'm pretty sure most of our volunteers and dispatchers are on there. There's a couple that aren't. As Caroline said earlier, Bruni will be sending emails out now, batch emails out to all of you dispatchers, but she'll also post on Facebook when that's been done, so you can check your emails. And yeah, we just try to keep the Facebook. I mean, obviously, it's important to have a 2-way discussion, and especially with the volunteers when you're out out and about, if there's anything that you can, like the chat tonight, a lot of people have you've answered each other, which is really helpful, and that's what we want for the Facebook page. But we do need to keep it manageable as well. So yeah, if there's anything that you're unsure of, or a bit of information that you've heard that you would like to share, send it to one of us at Central. We'll check that it's kosher and that it's correct information before we post it. Trying to think if there's anything else. Not really. I think Caroline's covered it all. Again, we've got the local offers, and that's always being added to. Again, that's a task in itself, making sure that that is current and correct. There's some that are added that may need tweaking, and actually in hindsight, you know, demand is higher than supply. So any updates that you can be fed from you as well would be really helpful. I've just seen Sarah, keep Facebook professional as a website. I think Sarah, when you say it's professional as a website, I don't know, Dom, if you want to unmute Sarah so she can ask her question. Facebook is obviously Caroline, 920 people on the Facebook.
No, more than that. I think we're now we passed the 950, I would say, and actually we have been quite strict on. You probably noticed, we actually took the ability for people to post completely.
I was just suggesting you keep it as professional as you have your website, because if you can moderate it, then you and you don't have too many comments flying around and other people's opinions on what protocols are. If you keep it within what we've already agreed, it'll be easier to manage. And then I can use that with the local next door app site, which is like a Facebook page.
Absolutely, Sarah, and that's exactly the way we're going. We're trying to not bring too much disruption. We're using those pages as management page.
Yeah, okay,
not really
thank you.
more. So we're focusing on our protocols, we're focusing on information that we think is relevant to people, but we haven't invited too much debate because we haven't had the chance. I think it was more important to organize the teams and get people to get the right information than to confuse them to start with.
Yeah, I think if you can just have it, use the moderator, administrator to stop people from putting stuff on there, that'd be great. And to stop threads that might spiral out of control.
Just tag us in if you see anything. I'm trying,
Yeah,
I'm on it most of the time, but we
I
might have missed any.
It just might be a role for somebody just to keep an eye on it or pass it around.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I don't really think there's anything else to say for the website. All of the information's all in one place. There's various documents there as well that can help both dispatchers and volunteers if they want to. You just click on them, it'll download a file, you can print it if you want. And obviously, if anyone sees anything incorrect or a typo, then please do point it out. I am just being fed lots of information from everybody, and keeping it updated is really important because things are changing on a daily basis. So I think that's it really for me.
Thank you so much, Jen. Next one is Bruni with update on dispatches, coordination, and the advice to residents.
Okay, hi. Right, so I sent out my first comms to the dispatchers last night, and as new dispatchers come on, I will be adding them. I decided to do it using MailChimp, as you'd all given permission for us to contact you. And also the ease of that is I can then link straight to that from Facebook. So you'll either get the, well, you'll get the email. If you don't open the email, you can see it on Facebook. So you've got it both ways. As I said to Caroline earlier, I think we've got 71 dispatchers now, and we had an open rate of about 80%. So 80% opened the email. I'm hoping the other 20% saw it on Facebook. We will try and ensure that we only do one email out a day to dispatchers. There will be an occasion where it has to go out because it's urgent. And what we agreed was before a Zoom meeting, I will send out the log-on details again, just so we're not all scurrying around trying to find the code and password. So that's that. With regards the letter, bear with me because I am catching up with everything that Caroline's given me to work on. We've realised that there is a need now to send out another letter. I'll come on to how we're going to get that out in a minute. There's various reasons for this. We've changed Some areas have had a change of dispatchers and some have got new dispatchers added. So as Caroline said at the beginning, some areas now have 4. For example, in Broadoak, I'm now not a dispatcher, so even though I am still fielding calls. So what we want to do is do update with the 2-page letter to residents with the new dispatchers, so they now know who to contact. A 2-pager which would be the local offers at the date that we prepare it. We know that that changes, as Jen has already said, you know, it changes pretty much every day, but if we can get the most important information out there, Jemson's, what the big supermarket's doing, etc., I think it's useful for people to have that. And then we want to do, again, as Caroline said at the beginning, these 4-page document, which is the top tips for health and safety. As we have all discussed, I think we're very aware of what we need to be doing, but the tips such as, you know, don't freeze it, make sure you wash everything. I love the video that we've shared with the man talking about the glitter, which is an analogy that I have used with so many people I'm talking to. I've done it to my own mother in Spain, and people think they're being so careful, but they don't know. And a lot of residents, I personally don't feel that that's coming across in the news and the updates that we're seeing, how you have to take in the things. I was saying to people, if you've got prescriptions coming in, you know, take them out of the bag and then that is sealed. And so we feel from HQ that that's really important, that we get that message out to our residents to make sure that they are 100% safe. Even if they are self-isolating at home, there's still stuff coming in and we need to make sure that that is safe. So we are looking, I am looking, not we, I am looking at how we're going to get that out there at the moment. We are trying to see if we can put any pressure on Royal Mail to do that delivery for us, because I understand how much work this is for everybody to do. I've got a few queries about how that would work, because Royal Mail need to sign off on the entire content, on what the envelope looks like, etc. So we need to have a think about what the quickest and most correct way of doing that will be. But that is something that we'll keep discussing at HQ. We're going to get quotes for the print for all of that, and then we'll go from there. But we need to get something out quite urgently, really, to everyone, to give them this update. We hope that we won't then need to do another update, but we have to get this off the ground as we did. So that's where we're at the moment. Thank you.
And just to add to that, I think it will really help us, because I think loads, as I'm sure as you as dispatcher, when you take calls, I've had a couple of calls today, mostly is once you tell them what's available locally, they're just really happy to go out on their own and then work out a way using the local businesses, etc. So if they got the local businesses information 2-page, if they got 4 pages on how to, you know, do their laundry at 60, not 40, and, you know, how to go shopping in a safe way. And then if they got the latest dispatcher's name, then I think we've done a good job to, you know, to help this community.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Bruni, for taking that on. Next one after Bruni is Simon. Simon, do you want to be are you able to unmute Simon, Dom? Simon Parson. Can you see him? He's just next to Anthony. He's waving at you.
I was going to help, but it's I don't.
Yes, that's it.
I think I might have done it myself. Is that working?
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah.
You hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't worry, I've done it myself. I'll keep it as brief as I can. Mental health protocol. It's something that, for those who don't know, that I instigated when I became a little concerned at the outset of this, that dispatchers might receive calls from residents who were distressed, and I wanted to sort of get some advice on how we should field those calls without doing the wrong thing. Fortunately, on the volunteer list, there were several people with qualifications in that field who happily came forward and have been working very hard over the last few days in the background, developing a protocol of how they will deal with that. And what's developing, I was hoping to be able to sort of reveal it all today, but it's still got a little bit of work to be done on it. But what's developing is that there's a team of probably more than a dozen professional, experienced people within the volunteer group, some who've been drawn in from outside of the group but who've signed up as volunteers for the purpose, who are going to support us with signposting from their knowledge base, so that we're not just sort of saying to people, well, this is where you could get some help, try this or that or the other. They will be offering to call back residents that we refer to them and give them make a brief assessment and give them some signposting to the appropriate agencies so that they can get the help that they need. The protocol itself for dispatchers will be two-pronged, really. It will suggest what you need to do if somebody presents themselves as being in imminent danger of their life. In other words, they might ring up and say, I've just taken 60 paracetamol tablets, I've had enough of this. Obviously, we need to act quickly on that. So there'll be advice to dispatchers in the protocol of how to deal with that situation. And there will be advice to how to deal with people who are distressed but not in immediate danger. That group are also very happy to provide support to dispatchers and volunteers who are perhaps disturbed by their experiences or who want reassurance that they've done the right thing. What they won't be doing is, for professional reasons obviously, is they won't be offering therapy sessions or counselling direct to any of the residents who need support. They would be signposting them onto where they need to get that support from. That's about all I want to say at the moment, really. It will get updated probably towards the end of tomorrow, at the very latest the following morning. I've got another Zoom meeting with the ladies who are dealing with it all for us tomorrow afternoon, and then I should be able to give you a little bit more. In the meantime, the protocol that is up on the website, although it's very simple and vague, they're happy for that to carry on until we can get something proper out there. They want to get everything right, really. So that, yeah, we're very lucky that there are an awful lot of people with an awful lot of varied expertise within the group, and they're happy to give us their support. Once they have come up with their protocols and we've refined it into a simple protocol for dispatchers, then I shall probably back off a little bit and try and take over the protocol side of it. That's about all, really. If anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them, but it's probably better if they come through once the protocols are up there.
Feedback is very, very positive in the chat, saying sounds good, Simon, and that's really good, because concerned dispatchers could be open to abuse or disturbing calls. So it's both for really useful for the residents, but also for the dispatchers. If you start getting calls of people who are worried because they've got symptoms or anything, that you're going to get, you know, not easy calls of people who are in difficult situation, and it's not something that we used to.
Yeah. But just to give an illustration, within our zone, we set up something to give friendly chats to a local resident who was feeling a bit lonely. That was about all. But the two ladies who've been chatting to him raised a couple of concerns they were unsure about, and one of the team has already been in touch with them at my request and has sort of given them reassurance and support already. So that's the sort of thing that they're happy to do, as well as direct intervention with the residents.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so I think it will work, but it needs to be just refined a little bit. Okay.
Thank you, Simon, very much for what you've done on that, all you're doing on that. That's really, really nice. And it's, again, one of the benefits of being in a big group with people with that level of expertise and together to offer the best option, really. So thank you so much, Simon. I'm just going to give you a quick update on tracking. I'm not going to share it, I'm just going to read it. It's on my screen. So that's as of yesterday afternoon. I'm not sure if all of you have had chances to fill your trackers. I think most people did. I think there was only one tracker that was empty. It could well be that they had no request. As of yesterday afternoon, I counted 135 requests that we answered. There were 7 areas with only between 0 and 2 requests, so pretty low level of action. That included Singapore, Rock Channel, New Winchelsea Road, Rye Hill, Valley Park, Rye Harbour and Pet level. But then there were 6 areas that recorded over 10 requests, which were the Citadel, Tilling Green, Military Road, Winchelsea, Beckley, Road Oak and Breed, with Beckley having had the most requests with a total of 29 as of yesterday. Peace Marsh in only 2 days of recording had already 8 requests. So I can see how Peace Marsh within a week will have quite a consequent number of requests. A couple of comments for people filling that sheet. We are only recording the requests that are done through a Rye Mutual Aid. So if a neighbour is helping another neighbour that's got nothing to do with us, please do not write it down. Then it would be nice if you added another column on the left at the start, so then you can also record the name of the dispatcher who took the call as well as the name of the volunteer. We should have done that, really, it makes sense. So then we know who took the call and who did the actual accepting the request. From a data analysis point of view, it would be really useful if you could all use the format of the date, because then I can just easily, put everything together in about one big one and organize this that way. And the same with the number for the type of errands, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Don't write in there food or something, just put 1 and then next to it there's a description and you can write what it was. But for me to do then big numbers analysis, if we get thousands of requests, I'll have to code everything myself. Where if you actually use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I can easily do that. Then on the complete column, could you please write the date when it was completed, so at least we know it's been completed. Another advice from one of the dispatcher was you could grey out a whole row. So if you click on the left-hand side and then you go to the bucket and you fill that in grey, you know it's been completed and we know it. But if you keep the date as well, it's good to know when it's been completed. And then you even, if you want to exactly explain what you've done, then you've got the comments next to that where you can write down exactly what was done and any other comments you might have and might want to record there. So that was all from the tracking. And now it's Q&A on the, before we share best practice between you, we thought we could open to questions. And then the last part of tonight's meeting, what we'd like very much is for you, if you've put anything in place that you feel has been working well in terms of like the way you organize your team, the way you manage to, minimize social interaction, the way, which shopping schemes you've used that have worked well, that, allowed you to not enter, which agreements you do with shops, which local offers you think are working. So anything like that, I think it's a good, as a big group, you can really learn from each other. So I'm opening the questions. Or anybody who has got a good idea, please share it with us and we can give you the, any comments you can see, Dom or Jen? Sorry, I'm just catching up.
Yeah, Darren's asked, can we tweak the spreadsheet? And yeah, just as Carolyn just said, we should have added a column at the beginning for both the dispatcher that took the call and the volunteer that was sent out. So please add another one on the left there for that kind of initial point of reference. And you can tweak that spreadsheet. I'd say as much as you want, but within reason. Obviously, we are going to try and follow that data as things increase. So if you can keep the structure of it as close as possible. We haven't set any kind of color coding. So yeah, Carolyn said grey out a whole row if it's been completed. For your ease too, then you can look and think, well, that's still active, that's been done. But yeah, if there's anything particularly you need to add, then please do, a bit similar to the volunteers list that we've also shared with you on Google Sheets. I know a lot of you have added another column if they've collected their PPE equipment, yes or no. So yeah, within reason, if there's anything particular, then let us know. If you've got feedback on it, then let us know.
Yeah, Lois has just pointed out that actually our zone has got a lot of volunteers and we haven't had a huge amount of tasks. So people could be, from other zones, could be farming them out to us if they need to or want to. Lois, did you want to add to that? Can I just unmute you?
Yeah, we've got about 20 odd volunteers and 5 responders, and so far I think we've had about 5 aid requests. And probably when you look at the demographic of where we are, there's probably quite a lot of holiday homes. I think the whole of Love Lane has signed up to be a volunteer. So, you know, if other areas are feeling pressurized, we could help.
That's exactly, I think that's exactly what we were hoping to hear between these patches, because looking at the tracker, it's really amazing the difference. And I think already, I mean, Beckley, you've had so many requests right at the start. And again, looking at the demographic and the little lanes and people being isolated, etc., it also makes sense that they've got quite a few requests. So maybe we can use Facebook group with that, or you can just know that there's people in the next group who don't have a lot of requests that you can just call on for help. Because it doesn't matter if you live in Love Lane and you go and help Tilling, you know, on the Citadel. It's, you know, it's all the same team. It was just easier to split you in teams.
Okay.
Can I just ask, have we had any feedback from any dispatchers where they've been short of volunteers, so they've put out a task and nobody's actually got back to them?
Not at the point. No, at this point, not yet.
No. Over to you, Caroline.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to read the comments at the same time, because now it's like a Q&A really. There's Tracy raising concerns about, my concern is that Jameson's is a hive of activity, and although a lot of people are staying safe as possible, alcohol wipes at the door, etc., people wearing masks, there's also a lot of people not following the 2 meters and touching for attention and coughing, etc. So this is a concern, and this is one of the reasons why our protocol is really trying to encourage you. I mean, that actually brings me to the point I wrote earlier, I really wanted to go back to, which is, as a dispatcher, I think your role is really nearly strategical, do you say in English? Where if you manage to divert people towards the local offers as much as possible, or using all the shopping teams, that means you don't have to enter, you can just collect outside, then that's better. I don't think what we don't want to do is just keep saying, oh, they need a shop for 2 days, oh, I'm going shopping, and then I'm going again 2 days later. I think it's really about planning it and being strategic in the way you attend to the request. And focusing on the people in real difficulties, which is what Anthony said earlier. We've had a few people coming back with examples where clearly they had things that were established, that were in place, that were working, they removed that, and then they turned to us for help. And I think we need to really encourage people as much as possible, like Anthony said, get the family involved if it's too big a level of help for us. And then that will allow us to focus on the people in real difficulty. And that now with the road closure, we're going to have a little bit of that up on Rye Hill, because the help that people on Rye Hill have been getting from their family, they might not get it just as much. So things like that.
Could I say something, if that's okay, just on the Jempson's point, please?
Yeah. Please, Mary.
Okay. I have a concern around retail in general at the pay point, not so much with how you pay, but at the pay point, because it's a natural congestion point. And in a lot of our small stores, like the health food shop and even Cost Cutters that I went into at the weekend, and certainly Jempson's, as you're loading your stuff onto the tills, onto the conveyor belt there, and it's going through, you then have to pack it, and you're much closer than a 2 meter gap with the staff there. And I wonder if it's worth us pursuing with Stephen Jempson, rather than just having someone handing out alcohol wipes at the beginning, but to have a certain number of people in store at any one time. And likewise, some of the smaller retailers in Rye, Holland and Barrett, for example, don't have a big store, but they've limited, presumably this is a a head office decision. They're not a small independent retailer, but they've limited 2 people in the store at any one time, which is very sensible. You could have one person paying and the other person browsing for items, for example. And I just wonder with our independent retailers how difficult that is to approach, and how we might choose to go about that. I don't necessarily have an answer for that, but I think it's something we might need to address to try and limit these busy times and opportunities for people to be chatting. And on that point, one volunteer said on the chat group today that they wanted to call out people in Jemson's, but they didn't feel able to do so because they were too close, they weren't backing off, they weren't keeping their distance. And I think that's a difficulty for volunteers and other people in the shop and ultimately our community. And I guess I think it's something we might need to consider and perhaps how we go about doing that.
Good point, Mary. Yes, there was a yes, Mary in the comments. There's some other points. Anybody would like to add something to that before we move to other points? I can see some other points in the chat.
Yeah, well, Darren's said that now people are going to have the letter from the government and receiving food parcels. Is this maybe another filter that we ask them when they first get in contact? I think I'm slightly out of the loop with this. Obviously, I know about the letter. I didn't know that there was government organised food parcels. So maybe Anthony can help with that.
Yes, that's exactly right. They are not only getting letters, but they also get a huge pack of basic goodies. I don't know. I mean, the difficulty is actually discovering who these people are, because unless they admit to receiving the letter and or the food parcel, you wouldn't necessarily know. So it's a little bit tricky, that is. But I'm not aware of any deliverers in the Rye area, but there must be some at some stage, because of the very nature of the demographics. So I can make a couple of phone calls tomorrow and see. I'm not at all clear how it's being managed at the local level. There was talk of GPs being involved and issuing letters, but how the food parcel works, I just don't know, because it's difficult enough getting a delivery from Jemson's using their third-party deliverer, finding their way around Rye. To have another agency coming in, I really don't know. But I'll make a couple of calls tomorrow and see if I can discover.
Anthony, could you also find out what to do if people believe they haven't received the letter but should do? Because I had 2 phone calls today that said they should have had the letter. I don't know what their basis for that was. And I just suggested they called their GP because I didn't know what else to say to those ones.
You can, it is tricky, you can actually register as a vulnerable person on a gov.uk website. For instance, if you are trying to get a delivery from, say, Waitrose, you won't get a delivery from Waitrose unless you're on that gov.uk website and listed as a so-called vulnerable person or somebody with underlying issues. It's a you just fill out a form and declare, and then you go on to some magic list. I've no idea what data the government is using for A, the vulnerable, or B, the food parcels, but I'll ask tomorrow, and I'll then put something on the Facebook site if I can discover. It is a bit of, some of these national systems are a bit of a mystery, and I just don't know how they're being managed. And it's often quite difficult to find people who do know how they're being managed, so it is a bit tricky. I'll ring Mr. Gove probably.
If I just added something I've just seen in the comments, saying people obviously they're going to receive that, but they might not consider they've got everything they feel is essential to them. Again, I think it's going back to the point that we're now at the point that we really need to be clear that we're in the middle of a pandemic, and sometimes the discussion we're going to have are going to be about lowering down the expectation of people. We're not going to go doing big shop that they're going to have everything they want. We're going to provide them with essentials. And the same, they shouldn't expect from the government to give them, you know, a wide range of those lovely cheese. So I think it's just about us being reasonable, being aware of where we stand at the minute, and we're in the middle of a pandemic. We're going to provide the best service we can, but they have to be reasonable. But that means they have to be told a little bit, you know, that there is a limit to what we can provide, really. A couple of other things I saw in terms of comments was Darren mentioned adding a time frame in terms of being more efficient when you answer the request and minimize the errands. And I think that's a very good point. So if you can just plan that as part of your role as a dispatcher with the other dispatchers, that's a very good thing to look at. Another good point from Luciano was maybe we could have a WhatsApp group for people who feel they're happy to cover the whole of Rye. In case an area gets, at some point, I don't think it's needed just now, but it might well be that at some point one area will be so busy that it'd be good having like a central WhatsApp of people who are just happy to be called anywhere in Rye or anywhere west of Rye or anywhere, you know, so Winchelsea towards Pett and all that kind of things. So these ideas are brilliant, so thank you. Have you picked up anything else, Jen, as you read?
No, most people are just, other than what you said, are in discussion with themselves. Just reiterating that, you know, as over the top as it feels, the more us guys wear our PPE, the more it sends a message out to everybody that it is required. We're trying to get ahead of the game here. Yeah, just to reiterate, Caroline, anyone in a zone that has only got a couple of dispatchers, do try and ask around with your other volunteers. If you're struggling to get anyone else to be a dispatcher, then let us know and we'll try and help where possible. Citadel, for example, Katie and Nikki, I know you guys were really high on requests, but you've actually only still got 2 of you and you're doing a lot. So if you need any help to try and recruit some more dispatchers, then let us know.
And it's more planning for the future as well, because if your dispatchers, your extra dispatchers are already in the system, if they've been on a meeting with us, they know what the tracker is, they know how it all works. If at any point you've got to self-isolate yourself, then your area will carry on working. And I think it's like planning for the future and then make sure our systems are robust and ready to take whatever comes. I don't know if there's any more questions that need to be discussed. Otherwise, I think I'd like to pass the word back to Mary. Just, is there anything else absolutely people would like to ask now or share ideas now? Oh yeah, somebody shared an idea saying that they've, on the reverse of their badge, they've added something saying keep your distance. You know, anything that works to remind people to keep their distance and respect the social distancing and the 2 meters.
It does concern me, this Jensens thing, and I'm afraid the health food store does as well. And I'm prepared to volunteer in the full kit to go in and talk to people, actually, if they think it'll make any difference. I really don't mind doing that. I feel I've got a reasonable amount of background so to do, but equally well, if the group thinks it might not be appropriate, we could hold that for a while. I just think that sometimes it's a question of customers, but sometimes it's also a question of staff and getting over the idea that, you know, things like money are dangerous, they're not safe, and you need to protect yourself as much as you can within a retail environment. So I'm more than happy to go in some disposable overalls and, you know, it'll maybe, how can I put it, highlight the work that we're doing and get some of those that are a little bit behind the times, and some, sadly, who simply don't believe that this is an issue, maybe they'll wake up to it. Happy to have some feedback on that.
Well, there's some good feedback coming here. There's some thumbs up. There's, I think, would be an excellent idea, Mary. I don't think some people realize the dangers. And I think at this point of the day, I think our group has nearly got a responsibility there, because we're so well informed. We've been so lucky to have Mary and Anthony and everybody, and to be a bit ahead of the curve with the protocols and aware of what should be happening. and how serious the pandemic is, maybe we should really use that role to make sure that all our volunteers are at the same level of awareness, and then they then spread that around them. And then already at that point, we'll have 600 people locally who are completely aware of how important it is to have safe protocols. And then hopefully by then with Bruni and the HQ, we'll have finished our letter, and then we'll add another layer to kind of raise information and awareness across the whole community. But yes, I think working, Anthony, I saw you waving your hand when Mary was talking about Jameson. Did you want to add anything?
Well, I was only going to say that I'm due to speak to Stephen Jemson again tomorrow, so I'll raise it with him. I don't think anything much happens in Jemson's without Stephen's okay. It's a very hierarchical system, but I'll have a word. I mean, from my experience of going into the odd business, it is really, there are people about who, this whole thing is just passing them by. You know, I was in for a paper in St. Port Street on Sunday, and 3 people came up within inches of me and just looked at me. When I said back you go, 2 meters, they just looked weirdly at me and wondered, you know, thought I was some sort of nutter. So I'm afraid it is a problem. Some people are just not getting it. But I think anything you do just to flag up will be helpful. But you will have to be careful, because one of the people on Sunday got quite abusive about the whole thing and said I was over egging it. So you'll have to be careful.
It doesn't worry me. I spent years as an A&E sister in central London. I've had a sawn-off shotgun held to my head, so I dare say a few people saying I'm over egging it isn't really going to bother me that much. But somebody, I think Stephen, somewhere up the comments said health food store, and I did chat really nicely to the owner about a month ago. I repeated it 2 weeks ago, so maybe it's the time to go in and buy something in the full kit. I don't know. But I also take Simon's point about non-consensual policing, and I think it's critical that we don't rub people up the wrong way on this. I think it's a delicate balance. And I think it's something, you know, we just need to tread a careful line, and be aware of that this is all, basically, it's all by consent, it's all voluntary, there's nothing we can do to enforce any of this. It's about persuading people, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was just a couple of points come up about perhaps as dispatchers, can we check back in with people that we've carried aid out to, either the next day or a few days later, to check everything's okay. I think it's a great idea. I think it's okay in practice, but we don't know how busy we're going to be in a week's time. So I think if you've got the time to do it now, and you can look back on your spreadsheet and think, okay, that task was completed, we delivered some shopping or some meds, and I've got time to check in on him or her and see if they're okay, then I think, sure, go ahead. But I think really we're the ones that are receiving the contact, and we may get to a point we're too busy to do that. So it's, I think, your prerogative.
Jen, can I just add on there? We've got Broadoak, we're quite lucky, we have quite a lot of volunteers, and what we're finding is they've got nothing to do at the moment. So we were going to look at our system and see if we could do that sort of 5 or 6 day callback. And the reason we put it at 5 or 6 days is because doctor surgeries are taking up to 5 days to deliver meds. And we'll give that a trial. Like you say, if we get busy, we might have to drop that.
Definitely. Oh, well, I think an inactive, I don't know who said it before, whether it was Anthony or Mary, an inactive volunteer, potentially as a volunteer, you're going to lose because they're not making use of them and they'll go elsewhere. So definitely, if you've got the capacity to do that, then, you know, pass those details on and just have check-in calls every few days, absolutely. Until we can't do it any longer, certainly.
There was another question about somebody saying they have initially set up their group, and I think they mentioned inactive volunteers. I don't know if I read that properly. But there was, I know some of you said, oh, I haven't heard back from half of my volunteers. Maybe just take the call and actually call them direct, and not just the WhatsApp. So just to make sure that they've understood what it's all about, what they're supposed to do, just that very first time. that could be a way to do it, maybe to engage them. Make sure that they agree with the communication, because some people are not good on Facebook or WhatsApp, but that doesn't mean they're not looking or reading what you're saying. But maybe it's for you now to kind of, you know, the same way we're doing it with you, trying to agree ways of communicating. Make sure you've got that way of communication agreed with your volunteers, that they are going to, you know, hear what you're saying and follow it, and then have ways to communicate back. Anything else? I think that's it. I think this is mainly the same idea.
Yeah, just it's not relevant, but what Mary was saying, you know, my husband works at the Conquest. He manages cardiology outpatients, and occasionally I get a bit of insider information. He doesn't really bring his work home. It's crazy enough here as it is. But I know that ITU is now the COVID ward, and HTU is a COVID ward, and there is a lot that the Conquest are doing to be prepared for this. There's talks of the Conquest becoming the COVID hospital and Eastbourne being the clean hospital, both in the same trust. I don't know if that's going to happen, but they are prepared for something catastrophic, and I think we need to be too. So yeah, that's my last little leaving thought.
Mary, did you want to add anything, or should we just bring the concluding point?
Yeah.
Would you mind if I just said one thing? I'm sorry to keep interjecting on this, but we've got about 70 or so dispatchers now, and as of today, what is the date? I don't even know what day it is. 31st, Tuesday the 31st of March, day 8 of lockdown. We have 70 or so dispatchers, and I have currently 4 dispatchers or their families doing isolating with COVID symptoms. Okay, I have had no details of any volunteers. Oh, sorry, lost some feedback. I've had no details of volunteers. Why is it doing that? I don't know. For some reason, either all the volunteers are incredibly healthy, or they're not feeding back up the line.
And that's a very good point, Mary, regarding the central record. If any, make sure that your volunteers are aware that if themselves or their family are experiencing symptoms, they are due to let you know, so you can then let Mary know. And Mary's keeping the central record for us, so we can, track what's happening across Rye and surrounding area. So please do that. And just to conclude, if Anthony, do you want to add anything?
No, nothing really. There have been 2 police incidents in Rye involving violence in various parts. So obviously it is getting to some people, probably related to the isolation and so forth. So, there may well be further incidents involving violence and so forth, which, volunteers need to be aware of.
Will you keep us updated, Anthony, yeah?
Sorry, yes, I will. I was talking to the police. I won't give you any more details, but one involved violence between a couple, and somebody was quite badly hurt, and there was another one less hurt. But there are these incidents which are fairly unusual for Rye. So maybe it's a whole impact of the situation.
I just would like to add a quick word to conclude on a positive note. And I think, I don't know how you feel, but I think for me personally, having focused on this group and the Rye Mutual Aid over the last nearly 2.5 weeks now, it's been such a positive experience. And tonight, seeing the level of commitment and of everybody here, and seeing what you're ready to do and how everybody is joining effort. And I think what we're doing is fantastic. And just wanted to say a massive thank you, really, because I think really by doing things properly, we might actually save lives. So it is really important that we carry on doing our work, and well done everybody for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Bye everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.